All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to do part two of this whole thing. Remember, ultimate goal is to prove or disprove a hypothesis that we can make a relevant statistic for special teams in the NFL. And yes, or in the last video, if you want to, you can go back, make sure you like, subscribe, do all that stuff that you do on YouTube. Not really sure how all that works, but I'm sure eventually I'm going to find out. But till that happens, uh, plus you'll get a little explanation of what's going on here. It's kind of off the cuff. I don't plan on editing these. I'm just trying to push these out once every week to, show some things, maybe learn a few items in the cloud, which is where I'm going to do most of my work. Not on a local workstation, although I am going to use a virtual machine, and that's what we're going to kind of go over today. Now, the virtual machine's already made and already has everything I want downloaded onto it. If you're interested in learning more about how to create a virtual machine, utilizing cloud providers like Azure or AWS or any of those other ones, put a comment in there, and maybe I can send you some links, or maybe I'll even do a separate one on how to do that. But it takes a while to build this unless you have all the init scripts set up to where you can just deploy it like that. And those options are available to you, but I've moved all my data from my local workstation into this virtual machine so I could show you some of the features on how to load data into the cloud. Again, the storage account for Azure, and I'll try to explain that. The storage account for Azure has already been created, and it's already linked with my Azure Synapse Analytics. Again, that's a little out of scope of what we're gonna talk about for the purposes of doing what we're trying to do. But again, if you're interested in these types of things, post a comment, reach out to me, ask a question, things like that. I'm certified in Azure data engineering, so deploying these things and linking services to Synapse Analytics is something that I understand and maybe I can help you out with. But the reason I'm doing this is because then I don't have to rely on compute power from my local machine. I have a distributed Spark cluster that I can use out in the cloud, which is awesome. So let's dive into this. I'm going to switch over to my virtual machine and hopefully this works. Remember, this is kind of off the cuff stuff. So I'm hoping that I can bring this up. Now the first, if you notice over here on the side, we have, I'm going to turn on my little, these are the files right here. Yep, not that one. This right here. So these are the files I'm going to load into my storage account. And the reason I'm going to load them into my storage account is because it's super cheap storage out in the cloud, and I already have a storage account linked to my service. I guess you can't really see this on the virtual machine, or through the screenshot that I'm utilizing in here, but they are located over here on the side. So if hopefully it's the games.csv, the stadiums.csv, the players.csv, and the two zip files. So I'm going to load those in. First thing I'm going to do is, while I'm setting all this up, is I'm going to go ahead and unzip these. I'm going to extract these from the desktop so that they're in an unzipped, uncompressed format, because although it is possible to kind of utilize compressed data in there, it's not the best. So plus I'm going to convert it to another format. So I'm just going to go ahead and extract all this data. You can tell this takes a while because, or these are large files because of the amount of time it takes to do this. While that's going on, I'm going to open up my Storage Explorer. Now, Storage Explorer is an app that you can download on a local workstation that allows you to connect to your storage services in the cloud without having to go to the Azure portal. That's the reason I want to do this for my virtual machine, because I already have, again, I use this for development purposes. And that way I'm not showing subscription IDs and things like that in the portal that could compromise my uh, my my accounts or anything like that. I don't want to do that for sure. So hopefully this program will open up here as soon as I get my extraction going on. You can see that it's opened up Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. I don't know if I'm connected to anything right now, but that's obviously the first step, is creating a connection. It may have this already established. You can see it's trying to load something in here now. But the point and purpose of this first video, and I'm trying to keep these within 10 to 20 minutes so they're not overloading or overwhelming. We're just trying to get into this. Oh, let's just install this because updates are updates. I accept. Hopefully they don't turn me into the human centipede like they did in South Park. I just watched a documentary on South Park about how because they kick those videos out every 6 days, and every week they're basically creating a new show every week when they do their thing. And this was right after the documentary is like 6 days to air or something like that. It's really interesting, and it's based on the episode of the human centipede one where Kyle like accepts the iTunes terms without reading them first, and that was a funny episode. Long time ago episode. I think that was 2012 or something like that. But kind of shows the process of them creating the show, which is hilarious, by the way. And you get some insight to some other uh, things that they did. About the data a little bit. So I pulled from different sources and different places so that I have a historical representation of a lot of different NFL data. This archive.zip that's on here, if you see it down here in the corner, I don't know if it, yeah, you can see my cursor, yay. Okay, so you can see my cursor at least. So this archive folder here has a bunch of different games in this from, it's not inclusive or it's not inclusive to the special team stuff, but I wanted to include it in here because there may be some good data in here. I don't care about the release notes. The NFL Big Data Bowl, this is the one that has all the special teams information. And then I have a game CSV file, a stadiums one, because there's different stadiums that are out there, and then a players file that has the current player roster on there, at least from 2021, I believe, in there. So it does have my account in here. So I'm going to go in here and look at my different accounts. So you can see that I have this Storage Explorer allows me to close this out real quick. Connect to different storage accounts that I have created in here. And in this case, I'm going to go into here and have containers in here for training purposes. I think my containers are training samples and something else. Oh, AML and training. So machine learning and training data. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new blob container here. So I'm going to create one and I'm going to call it NFL. Yeah, I'll just call it NFL. That way, can only contain lowercase letters. So there you go, my first letter. I got you. I heard you. NFL. All right. So there we go. First error. Read the error. We're going to go through that a lot probably in this case. Just so you know. All right. So so we have this NFL data, and this is a data lake, an ADLS Gen 2, which means it has a Hadoop file system built into it. It's different than a regular storage account. What this allows me to do is create like a file directory as opposed to just a flat namespace directory, which is great for organizing your data, which is what we want to do because I want to take this data and I want to refine it, put it in another folder, refine it some more, put it, and write it back to a different folder so that I have, further refined data like what they refer to as like bronze level, silver level, gold level standard stuff for the purposes that I want to use it for. And I don't want to like delete the raw data or get rid of it or overwrite it or anything like that, which is what happens in a regular object storage. So I'm going to create a new folder, and this first folder I'll call I'll call special teams. I'm going to use underscores in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload data in here. Hopefully I can. All right. Now I'm going to open this up, and then I'm going to upload a folder, which is in my desktop, this is the Big Data Bowl 2022. I'm going to call it a block bob, and I'm going to upload it in here. This will probably take a little time to do this. What I can do, I believe, while that's uploading, it goes pretty fast though. The nice part about the cloud is and these storage solutions, these like object level storage solutions, is when you have a connection established, your only limitation to loading in as quickly as possible is your network bandwidth in that case. And I have good network bandwidth where I'm at, thank you. But that's the limitation to this. Also, something to point out is that there's strong consistency built into these object level storage pretty much anywhere you go to now for a cloud solution, which means that as soon as this data is written to it, I can read it immediately. And if you have like higher level storage deployments, meaning that there's like a standard level and a premium level, or wherever you're going up above there, usually the higher the level, like if I had this deployed in a premium level storage account, then I would have the ability to um, the latency is reduced through throughput. So right now, like it would take about 2 to 3 milliseconds for me to retrieve data, and you'll see how this works in Azure Synapse Analytics when we get to that part. When I'm querying data right from my data lake, you'll be able to see that. But in this case, we're just, you can see how fast it uploads to this. Now I could also create a ADF process that loads that in. That's more of like when we're going to test this out in the real world, hopefully, against real-time NFL data as it's coming in on a game-by-game basis, and test out this statistic and see if it's relevant. That's what the actual experiment's going to be. So got that one. Let's go ahead and upload another folder, and we'll upload this archive folder. This one shouldn't take as long, and then we're going to, yeah, it's already at 90%. And then we're going to upload some files, and I don't know if it's going to let me upload all these, but let's try it. Players, stadiums, and games. There we go. All right, so you can see that they ask, just to go over some things, some terminology here that they're referring to in here. This access tier, all these are considered hot, which means that the intention of this is to like a write once, read only, or read many, or a worm is what they call it, a worm type of file, meaning that I'm going to write it once, but I'm going to perform several read operations to it. That's typical when you load data into some type of storage solution, is that you're going to write it once and then you're going to read it many times. So that's what they refer to as this hot levels, that my intent is to read it many times. Now, if I'm not going to frequently access this data or frequently read from it, I can change the access tier to what they call a cool or cold level. I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically the underlying storage costs, which I get charged, or if you have a storage account, you get charged for the underlying storage per month at a gigabit per month rate. Still cheaper than, buying a server and having the storage in that, but or even block storage on a virtual machine. But but still, if I moved it to a cool tier, or the other, I guess I should go back. There's an underlying cost for the storage, and then there's a cost for transactions made on it per month. So what's a transaction? A transaction is like a read or a write operation. So if I request data from this data lake, that's like a GET request. So a GET request is a transaction, and that costs me money. It's like a fraction of a cent per transaction, but still a transaction nonetheless. So if I move this to a cooler tier, the underlying storage costs get cheaper, the transactions go higher. So there's like a trade-off between the two. I'm going to read this, I may change the tier. You can set lifecycle policies to kind of, you know, change that kind of thing in there. But really what I wanted to go over was the power of this Storage Explorer. I don't have to go into the portal to get into my account and load this data in here. Now it's in the cloud. Now I can start using it. And hopefully I have a robust data set now to start working with here. So I have 2 folders, 3 files. I use Storage Explorer in there. And in the next video, we'll take our first look at Azure Synapse Analytics and how we can kind of preview data in there now that it's in my data lake and I have it as a link service. So thanks for being here. Remember, like the video, comment on some things. If there were some concepts that I mentioned in here that you didn't really understand, or maybe you want to dive some more information into, comment away, because I'm here to help on that. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you on the next one.